So we've been working very hard around our 3D print offering and really kind of building up what we've been doing in 3D print since we launched a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago now. And we recognise that in the industry there's some things that we need to do to really help the industry. So what we've done inside Photoshop and what is coming out in an upcoming release is a couple of really great things. One is the ability to simplify a mesh and reduce the polygon count. So when you're working with large polygons, maybe above 6 or 7 million polygons, you can now reduce that down to maybe 90% and get it down to something more usable, like 400,000 or 500,000. So it means then you can start printing out onto any printers without having limitation of the polygons. That's one thing, which is really great. The other thing really is around transportation of a 3D object and transporting it from a customer to a client, or from an agency to a customer, or however. And we see that formats like STL and OBJ are really kind of lacking in the ability to be able to A, viewed on any kind of screen, and B, secured down. So we've been working with PDF. PDF is a ubiquitous format for multiple devices. It's been around since 20 odd years now. And in 2007 we released PDFX, which was 3D PDF support. It's an ISO standard, and recently we've put that into Photoshop. So now you can import a 3D PDF into Photoshop and export a 3D PDF from Photoshop, which means that anybody using Reader or Acrobat DC is able to read that geometry into Reader and display it on their screen. So it means not only can you view it on a ubiquitous reader, you could lock it down with AES-256 encryption, both at the document level and the content level, but you could also secure it server side and lock it down globally, however it's been transmitted. It's a great way to transmit between clients and keep the IP locked down, which is really fantastic. But it also means that the object itself is compressed using algorithms inside Acrobat and in Reader, which compresses the original file right down to something really tiny, so it's not going to take a huge amount of space when it's on the computer or going up and down from the internet. So we think that's really great. The other thing we've been doing is working around something called bump maps. And bump maps is a forks geometry to give an impression of texture and texture information on a surface. So we've been working with 2.5D to be able to take information like your top and be able to make that into geometry and have that on a surface. So be able to inflate that geometry from a picture or from a texture and have it on a surface, so now your 3D model is going to have beautiful textures around it on any surface. But it also applies to photography as well. So you can take a photograph, bring it to Photoshop and create a bump map from it and then print that into geometry so you can feel it. And really start to change the way that you represent yourself as an artist in the world, and not have 2D flat images, but actually images that come to life. And I can see your face there. It's like, wow, that's amazing. So we do some really, really cool stuff when it comes down to 3D printing, but from a creative opportunity for creatives to really do something really unique and interesting around their work, but ultimately make it easy for them. So they haven't got to go learn 3D applications and get really bogged down with 3D polygons, but be able to do something more liberating and free yourself from the polygon by doing something much more creative inside Photoshop. We see the creative space as a really new beginning for 3D printing and the things that they want in 3D printing. And I think what's happening there is that creatives want to do color. Color for a creative is ultimate expression of what they want to do. Color textures and color information on 3D models. But being able to work with people like Francois Verrat, Tobias Klein, and these type of artists to really bring their objects to life when it comes down to color. For a creative to express themselves with color is something that we think is really important in the 3D printing market. Photoshop is a tool that's built around creatives, but it doesn't stop people importing standard STLs into Photoshop and then using Photoshop as an engine to print. Darlene, for example. Darlene upstairs, she makes these beautiful flowers. She made these flowers in Rhino and she wanted to print them. And she had problems when she was uploading to a service like Sculpteo and Shapeways. They were rejecting the files because they had problems with the walls, and she didn't know how to fix them and what the problems were. Because she's an artist, or even if she was an engineer, she still has got to think about those limitations of 3D printing. So using Photoshop as that part of that pipeline, be able to bring those models in and send it through to a printer, be it a metal printer or a plastic printer or a sandstone printer or a color printer, and we manage the geometry for you, fix the geometry, fix any issues with the mesh and make it watertight, and then be able to send those to a final destination. That could be an engineering model, but it could also be a creative model as well, whichever type. So Photoshop is really the end part for printing, but also from a customization point of view, it's really where it fits in. So it's the last part, but also has a point in the pipeline, which we've got creative artists using that to really kind of work with those models when they come out of the other end. I think, yeah, we fit into it in multiple ways. And what we have in Photoshop is a platform for innovation. That's how we think about it. So the platform supports both current trends and is designed to support future trends as well. What we can do now in Photoshop is we can take an STL, for example, into Photoshop, and we can then send that down to an FDM pipeline. We can also send that down a color pipeline in the same application. So you can go across both those pipelines without really having to think about the end result. You can just basically take it in, do what you want with it, and then print it out. What we're doing from a technology point of view, from a preview point of view, and this show in particular, we're pre-announcing a future technology called SVX. And the SVX format is a way to slice RGB slices from the model to be able to print onto a color printer. So then you'll be able to start to bridge the gap between the color slice printers and the standard polygon raster-based printers. So we see the future is bright and the future is a bit creative, but then intermingling the engineering side with the creative side to come up with something much more tangible out on the other side to really fit into what people want to do with it, to have ultimate expression, be it from an engineering perspective or from a creative perspective.